I'm Tom Myers with Myers Plant Healthcare. We specialize in PHC work, most of our time spent diagnosing and treating tree disorders. Today I'm here to talk a little bit about Vital Blend and the benefits of biochar and humic acid. I became interested in humic acid several years ago. We started using it on some issues with manganese deficiencies on maples, along with some other things, but that's where we saw the most obvious change. Um, some of these maples we had tried injecting, we had tried using soil applications to change the pH and just straight fertilizers with chelated manganese. Some of those didn't get the best results, but as soon as we started using the humic and fulvic acids, we saw a pretty dramatic change. The other thing that we noticed was a big change in turf where the grass was within our application area. That turf was much greener, and what was great about it was it didn't come with a lot of excessive growth like you would see with nitrogen. So after having great success with the humic acid, I was also interested in biochar. We'd been hearing about that for quite a few years. And the vitamin biochar comes from southern yellow pine. Um, what happens during the process of heating this is the wood is heated in very low oxygen and very high temperature. So at some point during this process, the wood expands or pretty much just pops. And I'd compare it to the way a kernel of corn, which is very dense, pops when it gets heated. Um, so the fibers in the wood will expand, becomes very light, becomes very airy, and you have a huge increase in the surface area in those fibers. So the drawback to just using humic acid alone is that it's an active carbon, so that means it's eventually going to go away just like you would see with compost. The cool thing about biochar is that biochar is going to be a fixed carbon, so that stays in the soil for hundreds of years. I've seen estimates of life in the soil lasting more than 1,000 years even. So when you combine the humic acid with biochar, you're getting more life out of your humic acid while also getting better aeration and surface area for the microbes with the biochar, and it kind of acts like its own soil reef for microbiology. Another thing that I really like about the Vital Blend is that the biochar helps to bind up soil contaminants, things like de-icing salts, herbicides, other things that are floating around out there. Um, we've been able to improve a number of different plantings, particularly one where we saw the best results were with white pines. Pines were near a parking lot. The parking lot gets salted too heavily every year. They get really heavy doses of salt and turned yellow because of it. And the first season we started to use that, we were using a higher rate than we normally would because we were dealing with contaminants. And we saw a nice change in the trees. Some of that chlorosis, the yellowing went away. They're much greener than they were. And again, the turf, the large area of turf underneath these trees, was much better than the surrounding turf where we didn't do the application with the Vital Blend. Um, so the overuse of herbicides, it's always been a big concern of mine. So whenever we're using this on urban trees, I walk away feeling good that even if we weren't using it specifically for that problem, that the biochar is still going to help reduce any injury, some of the injury that might come from the herbicides that are used in the lawns. Um, when we're using the ear knife to decompact soils, the Vital Blend is my absolute favorite amendment because it reduces the chance of that soil getting recompacted after we've decompacted it with the soil, because sometimes those will tend to just go back into a state of compaction again. And the Vital Blend helps reduce that risk. It also helps with extending our season because it can be done anytime during the growing season. We apply later into the fall than we normally would, and we can start up with our applications earlier in the spring. We've even done some applications in the middle of winter, knowing that it's still going to be there in the spring. So that opens us up in the springtime to be able to focus more on what we normally need to be doing in the spring, which is fungicide applications and a few insecticide applications. Um, so when talking with clients about the Vital Blend, what they like to hear most is that the product is 100% organic. It stays in the soil for, like I said, 600 plus years. It improves the tree's health. It can improve the appearance, flowering, and survivability. And another thing that I like to throw out there is Purdue's using that on their campus. It's being used on a lot of their flower beds with great success. So what I did in working with the American Biochar Company, I had Mark help me out with coming up with a rate sheet. The spreadsheet makes it a lot easier for me because when we get on the job, I can simply look at the diameter of the tree, the radius of the area that we're treating, and whatever rate that I want to use. It's all right there. So we take a diameter, we use a diameter tape, the backside of a diameter tape, to measure the radius of the application area, and we just let it fly. We throw it down as a granular application right on the surface. Most of the applications are target zone applications, meaning that we apply at a radius of about 1 inch per 3 foot in diameter, or I'm sorry, 1 foot per 3 inches in diameter. So as we work that out for an 18-inch tree, we have an area extending about 6 foot from the trunk, or that will be a 12-inch diameter circle, 12-foot diameter circle. So we end up applying, depending on our use rate that was selected for that tree, somewhere between 50 and 100 pounds of granular product. And all that we need to do to make that application is a diameter tape, a bucket, and a scale. The liquid applications, those can be used with just the Vital Blend 5M product alone, or that can be used with tank mixed with fertilizer. Used alone, the rate that we use typically is around 4 ounces per gallon, and we apply it at the 1 quart per inch diameter, using either soil probe or flooding nozzle. And this again just gets applied right on the surface. We can also, inject with the soil probe, but most often we prefer just using a surface application with a flooding nozzle. So thank you for listening today. Unfortunately, I'm